And yeah, continue. We've been taught that quite a lot will improve primarily if our external forces improve. Sooner or later, however, we realize that external things, while valuable in themselves, cannot address the deep restlessness of our soul. So where can we look for answers? Many of the currently available books on personal transformation speak movingly about the kind of person that we would all like to be. They recognize the vital importance of compassion, community, communication, and creativity. But as beautiful and attractive as these and other qualities are, we find it extremely difficult to maintain them or to put them into practice in our daily lives. Our hearts yearn to soar, yet we almost always come crashing down painfully on the rocks of fear, self-defeating habits, and ignorance. All too often, our good intentions and noble hopes simply become new sources of disappointment. We give up on ourselves, return to familiar distractions, and try to forget about the whole matter. Here's some quotes. It seems to me that before we set out on a journey to find reality, to find God, before we can act, before we can have any relationship with another, it is essential that we begin to understand ourselves first, says Krishnamurti. Another quote says, whatever your age, your upbringing, or your education, what you are made of is mostly unused potential. George Leonard. Then here we go, the rest of this page. It's page number 2 of chapter 1. Or the preface, I guess. This is the preface. It's the pre-chapter 1. It's the pre-chapter. Are the vast majority of popular psychology books misguided or wrong? Are human beings really incapable of living more complete and fulfilling lives? The great spiritual and moral teachers throughout history have always insisted that we have the potential to achieve greatness, that we are, in fact, divine creatures in some real sense. So why do we find this state so hard to recognize and live up to? Let's continue and we'll find out. Sure, I'll find out. Or my personal friends, if they ever wanted to watch, they could, but only if this is in the law that you can't post this. This is only for me, not for y'all. Y'all can read it yourself, but it's for me because I'm watching it right now, and just me. I'm only watching this, and the Lord knows it. So that's all I need to know. And my inner self is telling me that family knows I'm doing it, but I don't. I just know I'm doing it. I'm reading it. And I know I'm reading it, but I'm reading it so for myself only. Got this book from Robert Cochran today on Wednesday. At around like around like 250 or 310 or 259. I'm reading it now at 510. So there we go. Let's continue. We believe that most self-help books are not necessarily wrong, but merely incomplete. For example, even with a basic topic like weight loss, there are many possible reasons why a person might have a weight problem or issues with food, a sugar sensitivity, or excessive fat in the diet. Let me get closer, a little bit stretched out. Or nervous eating to repress anxiety, or any number of other emotional issues. Without identifying the specific core issues that are causing the problem, no solution is likely, no matter how great the effort. The self-help author's prescriptions are usually based on methods that have worked for him or her personally and reflect his or her own psychological makeup and personal process. If a reader happens to have a similar psychological makeup, the author's method may be effective. But if there is little match, the reader may be misled rather than helped. Any effective approach to growth must therefore take into account the fact that there are different kinds of people, different personality types. Historically, many psychological and spiritual systems have attempted to address this key insight. Astrology, numerology, the four classic temperaments, phlegmatic, choleric, melancholic, and sanguine. Jung's system of psychological types, extrovert and introvert orientations, times, sensation, intuition, feeling, and thinking functions, and many others. Furthermore, recent studies in infant development and in brain science have indicated that fundamental differences in temperament between different types of people have a biological basis. This diversity explains why what is good advice for one person can be disastrous for another. Telling some types that they need to focus more on their feelings is like throwing water on a drowning man. It's a cool way of saying that, man. You say my words exactly the way I say them. Don, Richard Riso, and Russ Hudson. Great people. Best-selling author. This is copyright and cited by their names. If you want citations, I can give you those, but I'm not authorized to do that. But it's by Don, Richard Riso, and Russ Hudson, the best-selling co-authors of personality types. Go through this. Where was I? This is where I was drowning, right? But where is that? Oh. Telling other types that they need to assert themselves more is as foolish as putting an anorexic person on a diet. In understanding ourselves, our relationships, our personal growth, and many other important issues, we will see that type, not gender, not culture, and not generational differences, is a crucial factor. We believe that awareness of personality types is needed in many areas in education, and the sciences, business, the humanities, and therapy, and above all, in spirituality and transformational work. While our restless yearnings may be universal, how they are expressed is much more particular and is, in fact, a function of the filter with which we approach all of life. The main filter that we use to understand ourselves and the world around us, to express ourselves, to defend ourselves, to deal with our past and anticipate our future, to learn with, to rejoice with, and to fall in love with, is our personality type. Quote by Surya Das. Spirituality speaking, everything that one wants, aspires to, and needs is ever present, accessible here and now for those with eyes to see. Okay, I believe that. Let's continue this. Good stuff. Nice ethic for sure. So here we go. Your eyes must be open for these things. That should be true for you, but they're open for me. I'm ready to read this, so let's go continue. We always have some professor classes, but I don't. So that's okay. It's fine by me for now. What if there were a system that could enable us to have more insight into ourselves and others? What if it could help us discern our filters more clearly and take them into proper account? What if this system could show us our core psychological issues as well as our interpersonal strengths and weaknesses? What if this system did not depend on the pronouncements of experts or gurus, or on our birth date or our birth order, but on our personality patterns and our willingness to honestly explore ourselves? What if the system showed us not only our core issues, but also pointed out effective ways of dealing with them? What if this system also directed us toward the depths of our soul? Such a system exists, and it is called the Enneagram. Beings of light. One of the most important incidents of my life happened to me, Don, several years ago when I was involved in a week-long spiritual retreat in upstate New York. About 50 of us were staying in a turn-of-the-century hotel that our teacher owned. Since the grounds and interior of the old house perpetually needed upkeep, it was a perfect place for us to do some grueling manual labor, and an occasion to observe our resistances and reactions while we worked. The summer heat was intense. The showers few, the lines to the common bathrooms long, and there were almost no rest periods. As we were aware, all of these physical and communal conditions were engineered by our teacher to bring out our personality features. So that we could observe ourselves more clearly in the intensity of this living laboratory. One afternoon, we were given a rare opportunity to have a 45-minute nap between chores. I had been assigned to scrape paint off the outside of the old hotel, and it was soon covered from head to toe with tiny weathered chips. By the end of our work session, I was so tired and sweaty that I did not care how grubby I felt. I needed a nap. And as soon as we were dismissed from our chores, I was the first one upstairs and into bed. Most of the other guys who shared the dorm room with me dragged themselves in shortly after, and within 5 minutes we were all settling down to sleep. Just then, our one remaining roommate, Alan, banged his way into the room. He had been assigned to look after the children of group members, and it was clear from the way he was flinging things around that he was mad that he could not get off duty earlier for a nap himself. He did, however, have time to make enough noise so that no one else could rest either. Another quote by Maya Angelou. Spirit is an invisible force made visible in all life. Continuing the story. But shortly after Alan came crashing through the door, something amazing happened to me. I saw my negative reactions on him rising in my body like a train pulling into a station, and I did not get on the train. In a moment of simple clarity, I saw Alan with his anger and frustration. I saw his behavior for what it was without further elaboration, and I saw my anger loading up to let him have it, and I did not react to any of it. When I simply observed my reactions of anger and self-justification rather than acting on them, it was as if a veil were suddenly pulled from my eyes and I opened up. Something that normally blocked my perception dissolved in an instant, and the world became completely alive. Alan was suddenly lovable, and the other guys were perfect in their reactions, whatever they were. Just as astonishingly, as I turned my head and looked out the window, I saw that everything around me was glowing from within. The sunlight on the trees, the swaying of the leaves in the wind, the slight rattle of the panes of glass in the old window frame were too beautiful for words. I was enthralled at how miraculous everything was. Absolutely everything was beautiful. I was still in this state of amazed ecstasy when I joined the rest of the group for a late afternoon meditation. Nice. Erasing the mind's inner stressful thoughts. As the meditation deepened, I opened my eyes and looked around the room and fell into what I can only describe as an inner vision, the impression of which has stayed with me for years. This might be Russ Hudson or even Don Richard Risso, or maybe both of them to their own things. I don't know. I'm not sure he's saying it first, but we'll get into that later if it tells us. What I saw was that everyone there was a being of light. I saw clearly that everyone is made of light, that we are light forms of light, but that a crust has formed over it. The crust is black and rubbery like tar, and has obscured the inner light that is everyone's real inner self. Some blotches of tar are very thick. Other areas are thinner and more transparent. Those who have worked on themselves for longer have less tar, and they radiate more of their inner light. Because of their personal history, others are covered with more tar and need a great deal of work to get free of it. After about an hour, the vision grew dim and eventually shut down. When the meditation was over, we had more work to do, and I rushed to take one of the most frequently avoided tasks, washing dishes in the steamy kitchen. But because the residue of ecstasy was still palpable, that chore too was a moment of bliss. I share this story not only because of its significance for me personally, but because it graphically showed me that the things we are talking about in this book are real. Absolutely, and amen to it. If we observe ourselves truthfully and non-judgmentally, seeing the mechanisms of our personality in action, we can wake up, and our lives can be a miraculous unfolding of beauty and joy. Using this book, the Enneagram can help us only if we are honest with ourselves. Thus, the elements of the system in this book are best used as a guide to self-observation and self-inquiry. We have designed this book with many practical features to help you use it this way, including each type's healing attitudes, gifts, and specific transformational process, how to observe and let go of troublesome habits and reactions. Oh my gosh, I love this book so much, guys. You've got to get this book. I love blue, and I love Holy Spirit like doves. Like just had one come over his head, or it was awesome when he got baptized in whichever book, was it probably in John or Matthew or Mark, Luke, whichever one. Check it out. It's in the New Testament. You'll find it in the Holy Bible. How to work with the motivations of each type, unconscious childhood messages, therapeutic strategies for each type, spiritual jumpstarts, wake-up calls, and red flags for each type. How to cultivate awareness in your own daily life. Now, how to cultivate awareness in your daily life. Inner work sessions and practices for each type. How to use the system for continuing spiritual growth. And then now back to the reading of this. Since it is helpful to do the exercises in this book in a journal of some kind, you might want to dedicate a notebook or loose leaf binder for this purpose. We suggest that you use your inner work journal to record the insights that will come to you as you read about your personality type as well as the other 8 types. Most people find that this information also brings up all kinds of related issues, memories, and creative inspirations. Maybe it might, but just know it's the truth. All you gotta work with is God's. It's for you inside your own self. All of you, your essence, your purity, and your honesty in your lifehood. Your creaturealistic being. As a first exercise in your inner work journal, we suggest you write a biography of yourself, not an autobiography. Write about yourself in the third person, that is, as he or she rather than I. Tell your life story, beginning from your earliest years or earlier, from what you know of your family history, up to the present time as if you were describing someone else. You may also wish to dedicate a page in your inner work journal to each decade, leaving room to add relevant thoughts and observations as you recall more. Do not worry about being literary or correct. The important thing is to see your life as a whole, as if told by someone else. What have been the defining moments of your life, your traumas and triumphs? Those times when you knew that, for better or worse, your life would never be the same. Who have been the most significant people in your life? Those who have acted as witnesses to your struggles and growth. Those who have hurt you and those who have been your understanding mentors and friends. Be as detailed as possible. Come back to your biography whenever you wish to add something, and as you move through this book and gain more insight into yourself. Your story will become richer and more meaningful as you understand yourself more deeply. And now we're into part 1 of this book. See that? Yes. Part 1, the inward journey. I'm just going to read as much of this as I can today, basically. Chapter 1, identifying your personality type. The Enneagram, pronounced Enneagram, is a geometric figure that maps out the 9 fundamental personality types of human nature and their complex interrelationships. You got a quote right here. And then it says that it's called non-women, like a circle, triangular thing, whatever it is. It says by Sam Keen, the great metaphors from all spiritual traditions, grace, liberation, being born again, awakening from illusion, testify that it is possible to transcend the conditioning of my past and do a new thing. Yeah. It's a geometric figure that maps out the 9 fundamental personality types of human nature and their complex interrelationships. It is a development of modern psychology that has roots in spiritual wisdom from many different ancient traditions. The word Enneagram comes from the Greek for 9, Ennea, and figure, gramos. Thus, it is a 9-pointed figure. The modern Enneagram of personality type has been synthesized from many different spiritual and religious traditions. Much of it is a condensation of universal wisdom, the perennial philosophy accumulated by Christians, Buddhists, Muslims, especially the Sufis, and Jews in the Kabbalah for thousands of years. The heart of the Enneagram is universal insight that human beings are spiritual presences incarnated in the material world, and yet mysteriously embodying the same life and spirit as the Creator. Beneath surface differences and appearances, beyond the veils of illusion, the light of divinity shines in every individual. Various forces obscure that light, however, and each spiritual tradition has myths and doctrines to explain how mankind has lost its connection with the divine. One of the great strengths of the Enneagram is that it steps aside from all doctrinal differences. It has helped individuals from virtually every major religious faith to rediscover their fundamental unity as spiritual beings. The Enneagram can therefore be enormously valuable in today's world to show it white and black, male and female, Catholic and Protestant, Arab and Jew, straight and gay, rich and poor, that if they search beneath the surface differences and separate them, they will find an entirely new level of common humanity. With the help of the Enneagram, we will discover that 6s are like all other 6s, and that they share the same values as others of their type. Spinoza says, "Do not weep, do not wax indignant, understand." And Thomas Merton says, "What can we gain by sailing to the moon if we are not able to cross the abyss that separates us from ourselves?" Ones who are black are much more like ones who are white than they could have imagined. And so forth. A new level of community and compassion emerges that obliterates old ignorance and fear. The Enneagram is not a religion. However, in order to interfere with a person's religious orientation, it does not pretend to be a complete spiritual path. Nevertheless, it concerns itself with one element that is fundamental to all spiritual paths: self-knowledge. Without self-knowledge, we will not get very far on our spiritual journey, nor will we be able to sustain whatever progress we have made. One of the great dangers of transformational work is that the ego attempts to sidestep deep psychological work by leaping into the transcendent too soon. This is because the ego always fancies itself much more advanced than it actually is. How many first-year novices have persuaded themselves that they are just about ready for sainthood? How many meditation students have been certain that they attained enlightenment in record-breaking time? Real self-knowledge is an invaluable guardian against such self-deception. The Enneagram takes us places and makes real progress possible because it starts working from where we actually are. As much as it reveals the spiritual heights that we are capable of attaining, it also sheds light clearly and non-judgmentally on the aspects of our lives that are dark and unfree. If we are going to live as spiritual beings in the material world, then these are the areas we most need to explore: presence awareness, mindfulness, the practice of self-observation gained from self-knowledge, and understanding what one's experiences mean, and accurate interpretation provided by a larger context such as a community or spiritual system are the three basic elements needed for transformational work. Being supplies the first, you supply the second, and the Enneagram supplies the third. When these three come together, things can happen quickly. Introducing the 9 types. Here we go, y'all and me. And everybody else. And God knows, but granted. Work with the Enneagram starts when you identify your type and begin to understand its dominant issues. While we will recognize in ourselves behaviors of all 9 types, our most defining characteristics are rooted in one of these 3 types. On page 13, you will find a questionnaire, the Rice-Hudson Quest, that can help you narrow down your basic type. And at the beginning of each type, chapter 3, of each chapter, there is a second independent test, the Rice-Hudson TOS, or Type Attitude Sorter, to help you check your findings. Between these 2 tests and the descriptions and exercises in the type chapters, you should be able to discover your type with a high degree of certainty. For now, read the following type names and brief descriptions to see which 2 or 3 strike you as being most typical of yourself. Another quote from this guy named Pascal. This guy's a new guy quoting here. If men knew themselves, God would heal and pardon them. For now, read the following type names and brief descriptions to see which 2 or 3 strike you as being most typical of yourself. Keep in mind that the characteristics listed here are merely a few highlights and do not represent the full spectrum of each personality type. Type 1, the reformer. The principled, idealistic type. Ones are ethical and conscientious, with a strong sense of right and wrong. They are teachers and crusaders, always striving to improve things but afraid of making a mistake. Well organized, orderly, and fastidious. They try to maintain high standards but can slip into being critical and perfectionistic. They typically have problems with repressed anger and impatience. At their best, healthy ones are wise, discerning, realistic, and noble, as well as morally heroic. Type 2, the helper. The caring, interpersonal type. 2s are empathetic, sincere, and warm-hearted. They are friendly, generous, and self-sacrificing. But they can also be sentimental, flattering, and people pleasing. They are driven to be close to others, and they often do things for others in order to be needed. They typically have problems taking care of themselves and acknowledging their own needs. At their best, healthy 2s are unselfish and altruistic and have unconditional love for themselves and others. Down here we have the Enneagram with Rice-Hudson type names. The Peacemaker is 9. The Reformer is 1. The Helper is 2. The 3 is the Achiever. The Individualist is 4. The Investigator is 5. The Loyalist is 6. The Enthusiast is 7. The Talented is 8. And of course, again, down here, the Achiever is 3, so, yeah. Type 3, the Achiever. The adaptable, success-oriented type. 3s are self-assured, attractive, and charming. Ambitious, competent, and energetic. They can also be status conscious and highly driven for personal advancement. 3s are often concerned about their image and what others think of them. They typically have problems with workaholism and competitiveness. At their best, healthy 3s are self-accepting, authentic, and everything they seem to be role models who inspire others. Type 4, the Individualist. The romantic, introspective type. 4s are self-aware, sensitive, reserved, and quiet. They are self-revealing, emotionally honest, and personal, but they can also be moody and self-conscious, withholding themselves from others due to feeling vulnerable and defective. They can also feel disdainful and exempt from ordinary ways of living. They typically have problems with self-indulgence and self-pity. At their best, healthy 4s are inspired and highly creative, able to renew themselves and transform their experiences. Type 5, the Investigator. The intense cerebral type. 5s are alert, insightful, and curious. They are able to concentrate and focus on developing complex ideas and skills. Independent and innovative. They can become preoccupied with their thoughts and imaginary constructs. They become detached, yet high-strung and intense. They typically have problems with isolation and centricity and nihilism. At their best, healthy 5s are visionary pioneers, often ahead of their time and able to see the world in an entirely new way. Type 6, the Loyalist. The committed, security-oriented type. 6s are reliable, hardworking, and responsible, but they can also be defensive, evasive, and highly anxious, running on stress while complaining about it. They are often cautious and indecisive, but can also be reactive, defiant, and rebellious. They typically have problems with self-doubt and suspicion. At their best, healthy 6s are internally stable, self-confident, and self-reliant, courageously supporting the weak and powerless. Type 7, the Enthusiast. The busy, protective type. 7s are versatile, optimistic, and spontaneous, playful, high-spirited, and practical. They can also be overextended, scattered, and undisciplined. They constantly seek new and exciting experiences, but they can become distracted and exhausted by staying on the go. They typically have problems with superficiality, and impulsiveness. At their best, healthy 7s focus their talents on worthwhile goals, becoming joyous, highly accomplished, and full of gratitude. Type 8, Challenger. The powerful, dominating type. 8s are self-confident, strong, and assertive, protective, resourceful, and decisive. They can also be proud and domineering. 8s feel that They must control their environment, often becoming confrontational and intimidating. They typically have problems with allowing themselves to be close to others. At their best, healthy 8s are self-mastering. They use their strength to improve others' lives, becoming heroic, magnanimous, and sometimes historically great. Type 9, the peacemaker. The easygoing, self-effacing type. 9s are accepting, trusting, and stable. They are good-natured, kind-hearted, easygoing, and supportive, but can also be too willing to go along with others to keep this peace. They want everything to be without conflict, but can tend to be complacent and minimize anything upsetting. They typically have problems with passivity and stubbornness. At their best, healthy 9s are indomitable and all-embracing. They are able to bring people together and heal conflicts. We're going to try to finish all the chapter 1 today. The questionnaires. The first questionnaire, which falls on pages 14 to 15, is the Riso-Hudson Quest, the quick Enneagram sorting test. This test will help you narrow down the possibilities for your type in less than 5 minutes with about 70% accuracy. At the least, you'll be able to identify the top 2 or 3 possibilities for your type. The second set of questionnaires is the Riso-Hudson task or type attitude sorter. At the beginning of each type of the 9 type chapters is a set of 15 statements that are highly characteristic of the type under consideration. If you are interested in taking a self-scoring computerized Enneagram test, you can do so at our website, www.enneagraminstitute.com. This test, the Riso-Hudson Enneagram Type Indicator version 2.5, involves choosing between 144 paired statements and is about 80% accurate. Beyond indicating the main type, it also produces a profile showing the relative strengths of each of the 9 types in your personality. The head usually takes about 45 minutes to complete. If you are new to the Enneagram, take the quest and then the task to see if there is a match. For instance, the quest might indicate that you are a type 6. You could then go immediately to the 15 statements on the test for type 6 in chapter 12 to see if you score high on those statements as well. If so, you're probably on the right track. We urge you, however, to continue to keep an open mind and to read the full chapter of type 6 to continue the example until more pieces fall into place. If the description and choices have a strong impact on you, then you are almost certainly a 6. We are qualifying these statements slightly because it is always possible to be wrong in one's self-diagnosis. Just as, unfortunately, it is easy to be wrongly diagnosed by an Enneagram expert of some sort. Therefore, take your time identifying your type. Read this book carefully, and more important, live with the information for a while and talk about it with those who know you well. Remember that self-discovery is a process, and that the process does not end with discovering your type. In fact, that is only the beginning. When you do discover your type, you will know it. Waves of relief and an embarrassment, of elation and chagrin are likely to sweep over you. Things that you have always known unconsciously about yourself will suddenly become clear, and life patterns will emerge. You can be certain that when this happens, you have identified your personality type correctly. The Riso-Hudson Quest SM, the Quick Enneagram Sorting Test. Group 1 choice, Group 2 choice. Instructions. For the quest to yield a correct result, it's important that you read and follow these few simple instructions. Number 1, select one paragraph in each of the following 2 groups of statements that best reflects your general attitudes and behaviors as you have been most of your life. Number 2, You do not have to agree completely with every word or statement in the paragraph you select. You may agree with only 80 to 90% of a particular paragraph and still select that passage, that paragraph, over the other two in the group. However, you should agree with the general tone and overall philosophy of the paragraph you select. You will probably disagree with some part of each of the paragraphs. Do not reject a paragraph because of a single word or phrase. Again, look at the overall picture. Number 3. Do not overanalyze your choices. Select the paragraph that your gut feeling says is the right one for you, even though you may not agree with 100% of it. The general thrust and feeling of the paragraph as a whole is more important than individual elements of it. Go with your intuition. Number 4. If you cannot decide which paragraph best fits you in one of the groups, you may take 2 choices, but only in one group. For example, C in group 1, and X and Y in group 2. Number 5. Enter the layer you have selected for that group in the appropriate box. Group 1. A. I have tended to be fairly independent and assertive. I've felt that life works best when you meet it head on. I set my own goals, get involved, and want to make things happen. I don't like sitting around. I want to achieve something big and have an impact. I don't necessarily seek confrontations, but I don't let people push me around either. Most of the time, I know what I want and I go for it. I tend to work hard and play hard. Yeah, that's me anyway. It's number 1. I'm about to keep reading. B. I have tended to be quiet and am used to being on my own. Again, that's me as well. I usually don't draw much attention to myself socially. And wait a minute. I usually don't draw attention to myself socially. And it's really unusual for me to assert myself all that forcefully. No, I do that. I know I do that. I think I don't feel comfortable taking the lead or being as competitive as others. Well, I guess that's me too, but I don't know. I guess many would probably say that I'm something of a dreamer. A lot of my excitement goes on in my imagination. I can be quiet, content, without feeling I have to be active all the time. Yeah, that's me. See, I've tended to be extremely responsible and dedicated. I feel terrible if I don't keep my commitments and do what's expected of me. I want people to know that I'm there for them and that I'll do what I believe is best for them. I've often made great personal sacrifices for the sake of others, whether they know it or not. I often don't take adequate care of myself. I do the work that needs to be done and relax and do what I really want if there's time left. Group 2. X. I'm a person who usually maintains a positive outlook that feels that things will work out for the best. I can usually find something to be enthusiastic about and different ways to occupy about myself. I like being around people and helping others to be happy. I enjoy sharing my own well-being with them. I don't always feel great, but I try not to show it to anyone. However, staying positive has sometimes meant I've put off dealing with my own problems for too long. Why? I'm a person who has strong feelings about things. Most people can tell when I'm unhappy about something. I can be guarded with people, but I'm more sensitive than I let on. I want to know where I stand with others and who and what I can count on. It's pretty clear to me most people where they stand with me. When I'm upset about something, I want others to respond and to get as worked up as I am. I know the rules, but I don't want people telling me what to do. I want to decide for myself. Z. I tend to be self-controlled and logical. I'm uncomfortable dealing with feelings. I'm efficient, even perfectionistic, and prefer working on my own. When there are problems or personal conflicts, I try not to bring my feelings into the situation. Some say I'm too cool and detached, but I don't want my emotional reactions to distract me from what's really important to me. I usually don't show my reactions when others get to me. That's not me. I do that. Usually, but I can be this way sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. I'm usually a logical. I'm usually a logical, but mostly illogical. So usually illogical, but that's all right. Logical is usually how I am when I'm perfectly my true self. I'm logic. I have logic, but I'm not always that way. I do tend to be self-controlled when I need to be, and when I want to be self-controlled, I'm self-controlled. Not like, oh, I gotta be self-controlled all the time. I'm always going to be that way, self-controlled. No, that's not me. That's not my family really either. Well, my family is that way, but my brother's more self-controlled and logical. I'm not. I'm more illogical than logical, but that's just the way I live. That's the way I am. That's how I do things. But I can get to the self-controlled, and I can get to the logical way sometimes, and the weight of it all. Sometimes. To interpret your answer, see page 18 for 2 choice. Wait a minute. Any more quotes? No. Okay, here's another one. Hermann Hesse. If you hate a person, you hate something in them that is part of yourself. Wow, this is such a good one. It's great, dude. It's awesome. This is crazy. This is speaking to me right now. It really is. What isn't part of ourselves doesn't disturb us. Okay. Awesome. I accept that and I love that. I agree with it fully. 110%. Or just 100%. 90 or 5%, 90%. Or 85, whatever. Things to keep in mind about type. While everyone has a certain type while everyone has a certain mix of types in their overall personality. Oh my lord. I can't get comfortable. One particular pattern or style is our home base, and we return to it over and over. Our basic type stays the same throughout life. While people change and develop in numerous ways, they do not change from one basic personality type to another. That was number 1. Here's number 2. The descriptions of the personality types are universal and apply equally to males and females. Of course, males and females will express the same attitudes, traits, and tendencies somewhat differently. But the basic issues of the type remain the same. Number 3, not everything in the description of your basic type will apply to you all the time. This is because we fluctuate constantly among the healthy, average, and unhealthy traits that make up our personality type. As we will see in our discussion of the levels of development, chapter 6, we will also see that increasing maturation or increasing stress have a significant influence on how we are expressing our type. Number 4, although we have given each type a descriptive title, such as the reformer, the helper, and so forth, in practice we prefer to use its Enneagram number. Numbers are value neutral. They provide an unbiased shorthand way of referring to the type. Furthermore, the numerical ranking of the types is not significant. Being a type with a higher number is not better than being a type with a lower number. For example, it is not better to be a 9 than a 1. Number 5, none of the personality types is better or worse than any other. All types have unique assets and liabilities, strengths and weaknesses. Some types can be more valued than others in a given culture or group. However, as you learn more about all the types, you will see that just as each has unique capacities, each has different limitations. Number 6, no matter what type you are, you have all 9 types in you, to some degree. To explore them all and see them all operating in you is to see the full spectrum of human nature. This awareness will give you far more understanding and compassion for others, because you will recognize many aspects of their particular habits and reactions in yourself. It is much more difficult to condemn the aggressiveness of 8s or the disguised neediness of twos. For instance, if we are aware of aggressiveness and neediness in ourselves, if you investigate all 9 types in yourself, you will see how interdependent they are, just as the Enneagram symbol represents them. Here's another quote we got right here on the right side of the page, number 17, page 17 of this book. It's by Lao Tzu. He who knows others is learned. He who knows himself is wise. Typing others. We feel strongly that it is always more problematic to use the Enneagram to type others than it is to use it on ourselves. Everyone has blind spots, and there are so many people, and there are so many possible variations among the types, that it is inevitable that we simply will not be familiar with all of them, because of our own personal prejudices. It is also very likely that we have an outright aversion to some types. Remember that Enneagram is to be used primarily for self-discovery and self-understanding. Furthermore, knowing our type or that of someone else can provide us with many valuable insights, but it cannot begin to tell us everything about the person, any more than knowing a person's race or nationality does. In itself, type tells us nothing about the person's particular history, intelligence, talent, honesty, integrity, character, or many other factors. On the other hand, type does tell us a great deal about how we view the world, the kinds of choices we are likely to make, the values we hold, what motivates us, how we react to people, how we respond to stress, and many other important things. As we become familiar with the personality patterns revealed by the system, we more easily appreciate perspectives that are different from our own. The deeper purpose of the Enneagram. Identifying oneself as one of 9 personality types can be revolutionary. For the first time in our lives, we may see the pattern and overall rationale for the way we have lived and behaved. At a certain point, however, knowing our type becomes incorporated into our self-image and may actually begin to get in the way of our continued growth. Indeed, some students of the Enneagram have become attached to their personality type. Of course, I get paranoid. After all, I'm a 6. Or you know how we 7s are. We just have to stay on the go, justifying questionable behavior or adopting a more rigid identity are misuses of the Enneagram. But by helping us see how trapped we are in our trances and how estranged we are from our essential nature, the Enneagram invites us to look deeply into the mystery of our true identity. It is meant to initiate a process of inquiry that can lead us to a more profound truth about ourselves and our place in the world. If, however, we use the Enneagram to arrive at a better self-image, we will stop the process of uncovering or actually recovering our true nature. While knowing our type gives us important information, that information is merely an embarkation point for a much greater joy, for a much greater journey. In short, knowing our type is not the final destination. Last page of chapter 1. The aim of this work is to stop the automatic reactions of the personality by bringing awareness to it. Only by bringing insight and clarity to the mechanisms of personality can we awaken, which is why we have written this book. The more we see the mechanical reactions of our personality, the less identified with them we become, and the more freedom we have. That is what the Enneagram is all about. Interpreting the quest from page 14 to 15. Together, the 2 letters you have selected from a 2-letter code. For example, choosing paragraph C in group 1 and paragraph Y in group 2 produces the 2-letter code CY. To find out which basic personality type the quest indicates you are, see the quest goes to the right. Choose the code AX, AY, AZ, BX, BY, BZ, CX, CY, CZ, type 7, 8, 3, 9, 4, 5, 6, 2, 6, 1. Type name and key characteristics.
the enthusiast, upbeat, accomplished, impulsive. The challenger, self-confident, decisive, domineering. The achiever, adaptable, ambitious, image-conscious. The peacemaker, receptive, reassuring, complacent. The individualist, intuitive, aesthetic, self-absorbed. The investigator, perceptive, annotative, detached. The helper, caring, generous, possessive. The loyalist, engaging, responsible, offensive, performer. Rational, principled, self-controlled. Alright, that's the end of chapter 1, y'all. I'll see y'all next time. This is really just for my video, though. So if y'all want to watch this, go look. I'll get to know more about this stuff. It's a growing process every single day. And thank you, Trip, for watching this again, which is me. So I'll see y'all later. Until the next time in this field, God bless y'all. I'll see y'all later. It's been Trip. Peace out. Love y'all. So is God. See y'all next time. Peace out. See y'all later. This has been Trip. It's been a Trip. This has been a Trip Palmer Turk production video for educational purposes only, and just for myself and for everything else but for Enneagram purpose. And then you're going to thank for this day in this book, and for everything that happened today and what happened every day of my life and happened in my past. Thank you for everything. Help me to have a good day of rest today. Now, in Jesus' name, I pray this prayer, and in your precious name, I pray this prayer. Amen. See you later. Peace out. Peace out, y'all. Peace out.